rounds. This is Meet the Therapist volume number 5. And so just to briefly introduce myself for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm a past life regression hypnotherapist. I do QHHT technique. And I'm also an author. I've written a book on mental health and past lives and the connection, and how people can find answers and help through exploring their past lives. So today I have Anada Jones with me. She's a fellow Blue Mountainer. So I might get Anada to introduce herself and maybe just tell us where you practice, what you do, and how long you've been doing it.
Hi, thanks, Jana. So I'm technically trained in traditional Chinese medicine. I graduated from the Sydney Institute of Traditional Chinese Medicine with in herbs and acupuncture, and Tui Na, like the Chinese medicine version of massage. I practice in Hazelbrook, and I've been going through the motions of like Chinese medicine growth and practice and knowledge and evolution for about 13 years. And it's definitely a constant evolution and progress, because in that 13 years I have been through many different phases and styles of moving with the medicine. Chinese medicine is a very huge subject and topic. There is no one way to do it. Every single practitioner brings something completely different to Chinese medicine. We all have our own style and our own way. So in that way, there is literally millions, as many practitioners as there are, is as many different ways and styles of Chinese medicine. So I've got my own unique bent on it.
Yeah, wow, I didn't realize that. I thought it was just kind of set. This is what it is. This is how you do it, and you just kind of follow the protocol. But that's really interesting that like you all put your own selves into it.
Very much, because it's an interpretive thing in a lot of ways. Before modern Chinese medicine existed, Chinese medicine went through family lines. It was very ancestral, and it went through scholarly lines. So the traditions got handed down through scholarly family elite, basically. Then in the cultural times of the revolution, they decided to kind of systemize it all and create a standardized version of Chinese medicine, which is a shame, because like a lot of the actual knowledge and the deep traditions of Chinese medicine that made it very rich and very expansive was lost. And it was kind of dumbed down a little bit and sort of squeezed into this standardized form, which is what we as Westerners learn through Chinese Medicine College. And then you spend literally the rest of your career trying to expand and expand and expand into the vastness of Chinese medicine, because it is so big, because it's holistic, you know, the macrocosm, microcosm, you know, thing that most people have heard about. That's just in itself, that's huge. That's absolutely enormous, just trying to understand life in its most condensed itty-bitty form and into its most expanded form, and how you work that as a human being in between. That's that holistic environment and expression of medicine. So in that, every single person has their own interpretation and their own experience in life and experience in how to receive knowledge and how to interpret that knowledge, and then how they express that knowledge is absolutely individualized. And it has to be, because every single person is different. Every single person has a different experience in life. You know, some practitioners, you know, they're really focused in on musculoskeletal. Some practitioners are really focused in on fertility. Some practitioners are really focused in on mental health. You know, everyone has their own thing. You bring your own style and flavor to it. If it was literally just a formula that you follow, there wouldn't really be much to it. Like, you wouldn't need to do 4 years of full-time study plus an internship if all you had to do was just follow a quick formula of like, here's 300 points, you know, you just do it like this and that. There'd be no change, there'd be no progression. Chinese medicine has been evolving for over 5,000 years and is still evolving. It's a never-ending, infinite process.
Yeah, wow. So that's really interesting that in ancient times, like that Chinese medicine kind of stayed within the family. So healers were born to healers. And I guess if someone wanted to come from outside, maybe they just didn't have the opportunity to. So I find that really interesting.
Well, it wasn't that strict. Like, it was a scholarly elite. They definitely left it to the best minds. And yeah, they were born into, well, you know, like in like old China, they did have very, 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 very strict and, you know, very strict and very tight, very close family lines. And, you know, it was like elder sons and, you know, like they did have their own formula of how they handed their medicine down. That did evolve and change too over thousands of years. So, you know, when Chinese medicine was first kind of recorded, it was very shamanistic. It didn't have that kind of strictness around the scholarly elite and handing it down. It was very ancestral. It was intensely shamanic. And each practitioner kind of just handed their knowledge onto another family member so that the knowledge would stay alive. Because remember, that's how we used to actually transmit knowledge. We didn't always just have it written down in a book. So a lot of knowledge was transmitted through family lines for longevity and necessity. And then as, you know, the years roll on and you know, cultural changes and, you know, growth and things happen, you know, family members would choose to study Chinese medicine, and then you would spend your entire life either studying your family's version of Chinese medicine and then offering in your own studies as well. So you'd be building on the family knowledge. It's not like, oh, Uncle Wu said this and this is all that we do and I just hand that on to the next person. No way, Uncle Wu said this. Okay, I'm going to study what Uncle Wu said. I'm going to do my own meditation. I'm going to do my own research. And then I'm going to go, wow, guess what? Uncle Wu said that. And then I discovered there's this entire other universe around that. So I'm adding that to the knowledge. And then the next generation does the same thing. The next generation does the same thing. Also, if you think about it, back in ancient times, medicine was absolutely essential. Like, everyone had to know something about it. So if you chose to do medicine, it was actually quite monastic. Like, you really went into it. It was very much based around meditation, qigong, being very, very, very aware and really in tune with your body, how bodies work, how points respond, how herbs respond, their flavor, their nature, you know, what they're tied to, the seasons, where you pick it. You know, it's really, really complex. And that microcosm, macrocosm, that's in literally absolutely everything in Chinese medicine, not just like conceptually, but it's actually a map on how to live in its entirety. So literally everything you do is medicine. Everything you think is medicine. How you stand, how you sit, how you breathe is medicine. So in the ancient times, as Chinese medicine has been evolving and developing, it's really like you're all in. You don't just study a few points and herbs and pass it on. Like, you're all in. So when they say it's handed down, it's not really handed down in that way. It's like you immerse yourself in it, you dedicate your life to it so that you've got something to offer into this knowledge and this tradition.
Yeah.
Obviously we don't do it like that now, and especially us as Westerners, we don't, you know, we literally learn formulas and then go off and start practicing these formulas on other people. What makes it unique with each practitioner is that as you practice these basic formulas, you realize that there's something missing. You know, it's just like, oh, you know, kidney point 24 does this. maybe it doesn't in everyone. And if it doesn't in everyone, then what else is it going to, how else are you going to, you know, achieve the same result or a similar result? Like, there are ways around formulas. Formulas are guidelines. What your experience is everything, and what you bring to it and how you see it, your unique flavor and way of experiencing the world creates the medicine that you bring. So I remember my mentor when I was in college, she was sticking a point in me, and I was using my like student brain trying to like remember every single point that I'd learned and trying to figure out which point she's putting in. And I was going, is it this point? Is it that point? Are you using this point? And she'd be like, ha ha ha, no, no, no. And I'm like, what point are you using? And she'd go, experience point. And so it's like, oh, I'm never going to know that. Like, that's an experience point. That's something that she has figured out over decades and decades of working with bodies, that when someone presents like this, she does a point like that, she gets a certain result. So this is the beauty of it, and how it always evolves and moves and shifts and changes. And yeah, it's definitely not.
Yeah. And I guess that's why individuals have to find the right practitioner for them. So I guess Chinese medicine, or I guess it had to be standardized and to have all the basics in there to teach the core values and the core you know, treatments. And then, like you say, then people will go off and then they will use all of their experience from all of their accumulated lifetimes. And I think we're in a time now where all of that knowledge is starting to filter through to people like yourself and all of us that are healing in all our different ways. It's starting to come through, and I'm noticing it with myself too. And yeah, I guess that's the whole thing about putting your own flavor on. And I even know with myself, I've taken, well, I haven't taken it, but like my thing that I do has seen me kind of take it to the mental health aspect of hypnosis. So I kind of realized that I was attracting people who were suicidal and having amazing sessions for them. So yeah, I guess that with all of us, we get taught the basics and the core values of the modality that we choose, and then yeah, we put ourselves into it. And I guess that's why we're successful healers. I think that's why you're able to, you attract the people that you will help in the best way.
It's so interesting, isn't it? When you first graduate, you're like, I'm here to heal everybody, you know, and it's just like 5 years later, you're like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm actually not so interested in that. And I'm really interested in this. Like you, I actually specialize in a lot of trauma stuff. I have a lot of lived experience with trauma. Kind of my, if you like, my soul's purpose has been to, like, we're all here to heal trauma, right? That's if you're human and you exist, you have trauma. It's very hard to have gotten through any human life, let alone multiple human lives, without trauma. So literally, if you're here, it's because you're coming back to heal something, if not a myriad of things. So I think for me, I came back, I think I had fairly big designs on myself. I was like, yeah, no worries, mate. I'll just totally smash through all these epic lives. And you know, it definitely comes in hard and fast. If you call it in, it'll come in hard and fast, and then you have to learn fairly quickly how to heal. So my practice has sort of moved from like wanting to just heal everyone and, you know, just be the best pracky I can, to like, wow, actually, you know what, I'm getting more and more and more and more specific, deeply more niche based, into really honing and figuring out what it is specifically that I can offer the world in its most potent form that I have to offer. Because as healers, I used to think, because Chinese medicine is so varied, Chinese medicine is like, it's literally, there is no limit to what you can apply Chinese medicine to. And when you graduate, it's so broad that, you know, you're like, great, well, I can just heal everything. Then there's reality and literally how much information your brain can hold. You cannot hold it all. There is no way you can remember it all. And it's much more beneficial when you, like you have done, you hone your skills into that thing that brings your potency out, that where you really channel it and it's just like, yeah, that's it, that's my little zone of genius there. So I think after 13 years, I've sifted through a lot of the just doing it because I can, and now it's definitely merging into doing it because this is where I really can offer the best of everything that I've learned. And lived experience is such a huge part of that. I think a lot of us, through trauma and mental health as well, I go there because I have a shed load of lived experience. I have multiple mental health diagnoses. I'm no longer medicated. I've found a way through like my training, through my interest in natural medicine, through my interest in holistic health and living, and through my understanding of my spiritual work of understanding my soul as a very curious and inquisitive soul who really literally wants to experience as much life as possible, as many lives as possible, as extreme as possible. Thanks. That, I never really rule anything out. So it's just like, okay, let's try it with the medication. Let's try it with multiple medications. Okay, that one's given me a shock and reaction, so we won't be taking that one. So let's try it this way. Let's try it that way. I don't tend to rule out what is right or wrong or good or bad for anyone, because I honestly believe that when you go through the experiences, that's how you discern for you what is right, wrong, good, bad. I don't actually believe in right or wrong or good or bad, actually. I actually have abandoned those kind of polarities. But, for people that are kind of stuck in that mindset and are a bit afraid to move, like a lot of people go, what should I do? It's just like, I don't know. What should you do? What do you feel? Where are you confused? What? Firstly, I am not here in your body. I don't live your life. I cannot make a decision for you. And a lot of people come to health practitioners wanting us to make decisions for them. Fix me. That's impossible.
Yeah.
Fix you.
Yeah.
The first thing I say to everyone, I cannot fix you. Do not come to me expecting me to fix you. That is not going to happen. I am going to make you do the work and I'll assist you. But yeah, that doesn't exist either. So there's definitely a lot of self-ownership that I really push people into taking control and responsibility of their health and their wellness.
Yeah, and they have to, because any health manifestation comes from within. It's from what they've been through or from their thoughts and emotions that's the reason it manifests. But I'm with you on the good and bad mindset. Like, I think that the polarity, like I think we have to kind of stand in the middle and understand that, yes, there is both, and they're both equal. Neither have any power over us. And the whole good versus evil thing is a big one, I think.
Oh gosh. The old positive and negative, the good, bad, the right, wrong. I've had people say, like, is there any negative energies on me? And I'm like, you're human. What do you reckon? Have you ever had a thought where you wish someone ill? Have you ever said, I hate something? Well, then, yeah. Chances are you have not. If you don't have any negative energy, you wouldn't be here in a body. You have to. We're like batteries. We've got positive, we've got negative, and then we've got everything else as well. We've got all of it. We hold all of it. And I think this is the big thing that I had to learn through my own mental illness and wellness journey and through my own traumatic experiences, is that's what I was experimenting with. I had to really live through understanding polarities, and I oscillated between one polarity and the next until I sort of broke apart, and now I've sort of rebuilt and gone, oh, if you look at the yin yang symbol, you've got the polarities of black and white. You've got that yin density, that darkness, that nurturance, that place where seeds germinate. And you've got that yang brightness, that white, that sunlight, that pull into like expressing life. And then you've got a seed of each in both, because between the brightness of day and the darkness of night, you have dawn and dusk, because one is always inevitably a part of the other. And in that same way, in Chinese medicine, we say one extreme inevitably will turn into its other extreme. So it's like, we know that the middle of winter will eventually turn into the middle of summer. We know that if we sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep, we now rest, all this resting, we will eventually not be able to get up. That our body will eventually break down. There is a thing as too much rest. There is a thing as too much activity. And one extreme will always move into its direct polar opposite extreme. Now it's really interesting because, as we're saying, like, our world evolves on really polarized understanding of how the world works. You're either right or you're wrong. It's either good or it's bad. And it's really confusing. It doesn't give people much scope for anything else. And I think this is where holistic medicine becomes confusing for some people, because they want to try and have that certainty of a polarized understanding. And bodies don't work like that.
Yeah. And also, I think that having such a strong belief in positive and negative, or, you know, God and devil, or light and dark, I think that's really, I think it's confusing, and it gives a lot of people anxiety, because then if you believe light and dark, where is the line? And what can you do beyond that line? Like, you know, you have to accept. And the other thing is that, you know, I've hypnotized people, and we've also been the bad guy, you know, we've also been an energy or an entity, because in the grand scheme of things, if you kind of think of the planet Earth as being, you know, this place where things get played out, where we can experience all this, it's not fair that the same souls always have to be the enemy, or always have to be the evil spirit. And so, you know, we all change roles, and we all have a part of playing that role for a period of time, so we know what it's like, so we can experience it and gain that knowledge, and in that become, you know, wise, and, you know, understand the whole reason for being here.
Yes. I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. The amount of times I have had to remind myself of that exact thing every time I get kind of paralyzed into a certain way of thinking. So, you know, one of the biggest things is if I'm irritated by someone, or I'm affected by someone, or I'm, you know, triggered by someone or something, which, if you have a trauma history, which I do, I have an epic trauma history, doesn't take much to get triggered, really doesn't. It's just like, oh no, they looked at me a certain way, I'm off my tits. And, you know, like, being able to understand and being able to sort of really hold the fact that, you know what, I am a deeply experienced being who has literally been every single facet of humanity that I can. I have been an absolute asshole. I have been a murderer. I have been all those things. I have done them all. So how does that make me any better than anyone else who is going through their experience and their choice to, like, you know what, I'm going to see what it's like to be as mean as I can. Oh, wow, that's what it's like to be as mean as I can. Okay, well, now I'm going to figure out what it's like to be as loving as I can. All right, that's what it's like to be as loving as I can. And it's interesting because when you were saying before about the polarity between light and dark, and people getting really confused between the light and dark, I like to say things like this. It's just like, you think you don't want to be in the dark. You try staying in bright daylight 24/7, 24/7, 24/7, 24/7 without a break. You try that. See if you'll love it as much then. See if you'll be just craving some darkness. Please just give me half an hour of respite. I just need the light to just turn off. Please give me a break. This is reality. You don't want to be in the light 24/7. The other reality is that your darkness is only darkness while you're looking at it as darkness, because it's like a coin. The way that I've learned to look at it myself, there's heads and tails. Same coin, different face. You can flip it as much as you like. You might get heads, you might get heads, you might get heads, you might get heads. Tails. Let's say the heads is your pain and your misery and your darkness. heads, 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 heads. Oh no, it's never ending. There's nothing but darkness. Flip. Oh, tails. Look at that. You know, and it's literally what it's like. You know, it's like we're only dark until we expand our understanding and our awareness and look. Literally, if all you're doing is looking to the left, you'll get a crick neck. Turn your head to the other side. Wow, different. And it's like people like to sort of say, well, it's not that simple. I'm afraid it really is that simple.
Yes, I have to agree.
Simple, we miss it.
Yeah.
We honestly think we have to go through a really complicated process.
That's what I always say. I always say that, like, life is not as complicated as we make it out to be. Yeah. It's really simple and really elegant, but it has got complexities within it. So, yeah, I just think that sometimes people complicate it. Sorry, what was that?
Humans are complex. As we were saying, like, I agree with you. I have awareness and understanding of we're not just one person, one life, one experience. That's not been my experience either. My experience is definitely a very multi-dimensional experience. I am aware of multiple lives that I've lived before, and it doesn't. You are not the life you had before, you are not the life you have now, and you are not the life you're going to experience next either. You are a combination of all those things. When people come and lie down, I call my massage table the slab. It's definitely it's definitely a shift. And people go like, oh, why this and why that? And it's like, because you are an immaculate and very complex being. So naturally, things are going to be complex. It's interesting to try and help people and guide them into the understanding that something that's painful, like especially emotions, because that's where I'm working a lot at the moment, is like helping people through releasing their emotions. So emotions are energy that's meant to be in motion. A lot of the time we feel our energy, it gets really intense, and we are also culturally constructed to just shut it down. Just, whoa, that was too extreme, that was too scary, that was too much. I don't even know what to do with that. I'm just going to stuff it in as much as I can and try and pretend that it doesn't bother me. So a lot of my work is literally allowing people's embedded and really stuck emotions the opportunity to move through, to complete their cycle of being energy in motion. Because as we know, and science has told us, literally everything is energy. We are not actually solid. We are a myriad of multiply very fast moving particles. So anything that we're experiencing as stuck just needs help transitioning through us, emotions especially. So one of the major things I end up doing in my work is to help people feel. You got to feel it to heal it. I mean, this is so true. And it's like, it sounds really simple, and it is so difficult, because if you've had a lifetime of trying to avoid feeling pain, which, come on, kind of makes sense when, it's like, well, why would I go there? It's just like, well, because you've got to be able to understand what you're feeling so that you can offer it some freedom and love. You got to give it the love that it needs. It's like, a lot of people would be like, well, I don't want to feel anger. It's like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Good luck with never feeling angry ever again. Never feeling sad ever again. I don't know how you're going to conduct your life if you refuse to feel the emotions that are essential to your human existence. Because our emotions is what governs us and helps us make sense of the world around us in this physical, dense reality that we exist in. Emotions are a part of it. When we understand that and we know how to process our emotions and allow them to flow through us, we can move through our reality with a lot more clarity and a bit more class, a bit more grace.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree, you do have to feel it, even if it's an emotional thing. Like sometimes when I get upset about something or something's happened and I kind of feel it in my stomach, like I just feel this knot. And I've learned to just be quiet and just feel into it and just like look at it. Why am I feeling that? What's caused it? And then, you know, just go, okay, and then hopefully release it at some point. But yeah, absolutely, you do have to feel it. You can't keep running away from it, because the message will just get louder.
And from, you know, a clinical perspective, from like my medicine point of view, it doesn't go anywhere. What you stuff inside you will stay there and fester. So in Chinese medicine, every single organ system has an emotion attached and associated with it. You know, and if you, it's, you know, they say like, what caused the injury? Was it the body was sick and it gave rise to the emotion? Or was the emotion too much and it created this illness in the body? Both are true. Either way, you either got really sick and you became really emotional in this way because you were unable to contain yourself because you're unwell, or you have an overexuberance or a real kind of too much focus on a single emotion, and your body will respond. It'll just be like, oh, I can't hack it. What's really common in our Western culture is, you know, the old liver issues. And in Chinese medicine, liver is anger and frustration. So a lot of the time, and stress, right? Major stress. So a lot of the time, you know, we're living and conducting our lives through ridiculous amounts of stress. We call it drive. It's not really. It's just like socially constructed stress. We, you know, where we use words like have to and can't. And it's really, really rigid. It gives rise to a lot of anger, a lot of stress, and a lot of frustration. We spend half our lives being pissed off. You know, it's like, and then we end up with all these really chronic liver chi stagnation-based illnesses. So we end up with IBS. We have chronic digestive problems. We end up with Crohn's disease. We end up with autoimmune disorders. We end up with a myriad of diseases, all from this one organ system that's out of balance and unable to deal with the emotion associated with it. So it's like, if you kind of understand how it all works together, and you're like, really interesting. So for us women, I work a lot with women. I am a woman. I'm pretty invested in us. So for example, you know, if you're getting sore boobs before your period, it's like, oh, that's normal. Well, might be normal, but it's actually not necessary. And a really good indicator is that when your body's giving you sore boobs before your period, it means that you're really quite stressed, and that you're not in your flow in every aspect of your life, and that you're holding on to anger and frustration and stress. So when you kind of open up that awareness, you start to go, interesting, my body is really holding on to that stress and that frustration. Because what happens with PMS is that not only do our boobs get sore, we get mood swings like crazy bitches, and we start getting really, really angry, really frustrated, really short-tempered, just had enough. Bang, next minute in tears. Next minute, face first in the chocolate. Next minute, just get this over with. Come on. Oh, my guts are bloated. Oh, now I've got diarrhea. Oh, I just can't wait for this period to be done. And this is all really simple adjustments that can be made to actually get rid of all of those symptoms. So the emotional and the physical are absolutely inseparable. So when you sort of address the emotional, guess what happens to the physical? It will calm down. And if you address the physical, then the emotional will calm down. So this is this whole cycle of understanding. This is, for me, is what holistic health is all about. Is getting that understanding of how to work with both, the visible, the non-visible, the physical, the mental, the emotional. It all is also, it's such a, I don't know, it's so fascinating. We are complex. We are complex.
And I think the part of healing also is acceptance of change, accepting like a change in your outlook, in your reaction to things, in your acceptance of other people. And sometimes too, I think people have to be reminded that sometimes things are correct or right at the time, and that you can evolve to have a different understanding or a better understanding, and to kind of not hold on to things just because. No, I think accepting change and
Oh,
new things.
isn't that huge in our culture? Yeah, but that's what I do, or that's the way it is. It's just like, well, that's the way it is right now. But now, what's it going to be now? And people are like, what? It's just like, I have been thinking a lot. I am very word focused. I'm very aware of the words that I use are a huge part of the world I create for myself. Especially embedded in mental illness, you really start to notice words that you use more often than not. So when you're embedded in depression, there's a certain vocabulary that goes with that. When you're embedded in suicide, there is a certain vocabulary that goes with that. When you're embedded in mania, there's a certain vocabulary that goes with that. So all of them have their own little vocabulary. And I've broken it down to, and with the assistance of dialectical behavioral therapy, the whole world should do dialectical behavioral therapy, because it is that understanding the dialectics and how to hold capacity for all things. But definitely one of the three words that turn up on my table the most are have to, can't, and but. Oh, I would do that, but it's like, oh, yeah, but I have to this, or oh, but I can't. And it's like, okay, well, let's just slightly alter your wording. Let's, instead of saying have to, let's say choose to. So, oh, I have to go to work. No, I choose to go to work. You don't have to go to work. You can choose not to go to work. Oh, no, but I have to go to work to make money. No, you choose to make money. You choose to eat food. You choose to move around in your world. You choose to get dressed. Every single thing you do in your life is a choice. And when you create choices and you make choices, you become responsible and accountable for the world that you live in. So then you start choosing what you have for breakfast. You start choosing whether you're going to go to that event or not. You know, if this actually just feels like really draining, then choose not to. You don't have to do anything. There is no have to in this world. But can be changed to and. I've just been feeling so incredibly down and depressed, and I feel like I can't move. And I'm still here, and I'm still doing things, and I'm still thinking, and I'm still going through the motions and being aware of myself in every moment that I'm here being depressed. And I always have the choice and the opportunity to do something else. And I also have the choice and opportunity to distract myself. And I also, there's so many things you can add on to an and, but if you butt it, it becomes one or the other. It's just like when you're depressed, there is absolutely no way in the world that you can feel joy. That's just impossible. Oh, I'm so depressed. Oh, I should feel joy. Oh, now I feel even more depressed because now I can't feel joy. Oh, no, the more I focus on the fact that I can't feel joy, the more I feel depressed. It's like I feel really depressed, and at some point I will feel joy. I feel really depressed, and I notice that I absolutely have absence of joy. You know, it's just like, it just is.
Yeah.
What was the other one? Can't. So I just don't use it. Just don't use can't. You know, just don't use them. Don't use should. Don't use can't. Don't use but. Can't, it just turns into can. You know, like whatever you can't do, you can do something else. So it's like, oh, you know, I can't do an hour's worth of exercise every day. Probably very true, but you can do 10 minutes. So let's just go, I can do 10 minutes of exercise. You know what? I can't actually do 10 minutes, but I can do 5 minutes of exercise. I can do that. And it's just breaking it down and bringing your world into a place where you are accountable and you are actually making choices and moving through it and being in your world, actually being a part of it.
Yeah, and yeah, just changing the wording, like you say, like that's really interesting that you say that, because changing the wording changes your mindset, which changes your reality. So I think that's really important that you kind of brought that up. But also I always tell people, just change one thing at a time. Just choose today to change one thing in your life that, you know,
Choose to choose.
Sorry?
Yeah, choose to choose.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you have the power, you're just choosing not to.
I think, what becomes really overwhelming is that we often get really stultified in like, oh, so many things I need to change, so many things in my life are crappy. And like, where do you even start? A lot of people want to launch into hardcore dietary changes. And it's just like, you know what? That is destined to fail. It's too overwhelming. It's too much.
Yep.
Let's just put the diet on hold until you've got a little bit more capacity and a little bit more faculties, and let's dial it back. Let's just be more gentle with you right now. Let's try and offer you some support and support you so that you are more capable of launching into dietary requirements and changes, because diet, it is such a can of worms. I've been researching diet for the last 6 months, and I'm just as confused as always. I'm actually reading a book right now. I've got two here. I've got these. I'm oscillating between these two books at the moment. The oil protein diet and the longevity diet, right? They're as opposite to each other as they could possibly be. And I'm reading both because they both have absolute merit. They're both scientifically tested, they're very scientific things. And they're both really good anti-cancer diets. So I'm trying both. So I've been like living on the oil protein diet for a while. I've been doing that for a bit, and I'm a bit bored of that now. Like, I think I've kind of got it. I understand it. I put on a lot of weight because holy moly, that is like a calorie dense diet. It's for people dying of cancer, not people like middle-aged women like me who are not dying of cancer. But I wanted to know. I was too curious. I couldn't help it. I had to find out. And so, like, I'm halfway through the longevity diet, and now I'm desperate to know, like, when I get to the end of the book, it's just like, great, I'm going to follow some of the recommendations of that diet too and see, because I want to know, like, what the effects are like on my body. I am very much an experimenter. I'm very much, I need to experience it to kind of know. I don't learn well just by hearsay. I don't learn well just by, I read it, so it must be true. Really haven't ever been very good. Like, I don't really absorb a lot of knowledge and information that way. I tend to learn by doing, which has been a whole other world. I've had to learn the art of being. That's also something I've really got slammed with very much over the last 2 years. Yeah. The art of being is also a major practice for me at the moment. But anyway, so diet, like, and also I gave the keto diet a nudge as well because I was curious about that. So yeah, when people are like, oh, what do you think I should do? I want to change my diet. It's like, whoa. If you want to be tortured for the rest of your life, start with diet, because a diet is something that will change and evolve with you as you change and evolve. So obviously, if you're smashing back, lots of soft drinks and you're living on packet food and sugar, it's like, okay, well, the really obvious things is like, if you wanted to change your diet, get rid of synthetic food and get rid of sugar, for sure. But what are you going to replace it with? Good luck with that. You're going to have major wild responses to that. So it's never that simple. And this is where people get really paralyzed, don't they? It's just like, there's too much to change. When you say just change one thing.
Yeah. And I do that. I mean, I can't do diets. I can't just change everything at once. So I've realized that's how I am. So, and I like coffee. So instead of cutting it out, I have just made it weaker, and I have the same amount. And then I just make sure that I have, I mean, I've got a terrible diet, but I make sure that I do have my nutrients where I've always juiced. So I won't eat a salad. I don't like, they're cold and stuff. So I don't eat it, but I'll juice it. So I will make smoothies, and especially if I'm starting to feel sluggish or whatever, I'll just make smoothies, make sure I put as much live stuff in it, drink it, give it to the kids. And they're just little changes that sort of I'm making, same with sugar. I introduced, instead of trying to change the whole diet for the whole family, I just cut out a little bit of the sugar and replaced it with dates. I'm like, oh, if you feel like, you know, something sweet, just have a date. And they just started having them. So I think that, like, don't get overwhelmed with having to feel like you've got to change everything. Just choose one thing that's doable, that's not going to give you stress and anxiety. Do that, and then choose something else next week or next month.
And don't be fanatical. Don't fixate. Fixating and being fanatical about food creates so many problems. I know, I have eating disorders. I'm very good at being fixated and fanatical. And this is why I've now just started experimenting with lots of different types of and ways of eating. Mainly because, well, I'm really curious. I just am. I'm just a very curious individual. And other things too, because I'm perimenopausal right now. So my body is going through a lot of change. And Western medicine culture, like Western understanding, is that, yeah, you just replace the hormones that, you know, you're not happy with anymore, the ones that are diminishing. Nah, obviously that's never going to fly with me. It's not even an option. I'm like, no, I'm not just going to do hormone replacement, because eventually I'll have to stop the hormone replacement and go through it anyway. So for me, I want to stop the bike here. I don't want to deal with it when I'm 70. I don't want to go through that when I'm 70. No way. I want to be done and dusted by the time I'm 70.
Yeah.
So a lot of it has been, you know, really listening into my body, leaning into my body, and responding to my body with, as you said, nutrients. For me, it's all about nutrients as well. And, you know, saying that, you know, you can't have sugar, that's a bit restrictive. Like, there's sugar in literally everything. There's sugar in carrot. What are you going to do there? There's sugar in a sweet potato. Oh, can't have that. You know, it's ridiculous. I too enjoy coffee, but I also know my body has made it very clear that we can only have 1 week coffee in a day, and it has to be before 11 o'clock. If it gets to 11 o'clock and I haven't made a coffee yet, I just don't drink it. Because if I have it at 11:05 or 11:30, things happen.
Okay.
My body is very, very specific, and it's just like, mate, nah, we're not having that. It's too much for us. You know, there's been a lot of intense stress in my life, and coffee, as you know, is a very adrenal herb, and there is a limit. So in Chinese medicine, you've got yin times and yang times. So the yang times is the brightness of day, where you're more able and you're more up and your body's more like digesting faster and easier and things are moving through. And then you've got your yin times where the body's slowing down. You don't want to be pumping it full of food or, you know, pumping out your extreme exercise. You want to be like chilling and chilling and chilling. So for my body, midday is like peak yang time. I can't have coffee. Coffee is a really peak yang herb. So if I'm putting too much yang in my yang, it's too much for me. I just spontaneously combust and I can't cope. So it's like, it's really just listening. Maybe I don't, but it feels like that.
Well,
it is very much.
It's good that you know your body so well. It's listening to your body, knowing what it needs and wants and likes and doesn't like.
Well, yes, and that is my job. So I'm kind of, you know, trained. But the interesting part of it is that over the past 10 years or 20 years, how much that has changed. Like the dramatic change about what my body likes, doesn't like, what it handles, what it doesn't handle. It's taken me a long time to sort of figure out body actually says no now. It used to say, yeah, bring it on. And now it's just like, oh, no, we don't do that now, actually. Can you remember that? Because every time you do this, we feel like crap. And then you're like, oh, gee, I wonder why that? I don't understand. Like, it's never been a problem. It's a problem now. And as you were saying earlier about learning how to accept those things that change, acceptance through change happens in the tiniest ways. So, it took me about a year to figure out that coffee must be drunk before 11, because I was going, I don't understand what's going on. It's just like drinking a coffee at 2 PM going, I don't understand. And it's like, oh, right, okay, break it down, girlfriend, break it down. Yeah, and slow down, be present.
Yeah.
That was the whole like art of being instead of the art of doing. That's one of the things, you know, when I learn how to be instead of do, this is where being receptive to your body becomes a lot easier, I have to say. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I feel like people need to, well, we all need to just be and just be in the moment. I feel like we've all got tentacles going out to social media, and I just feel like we're really spread at the moment. And when you just be in the moment and kind of tentacles to the future and to the past, and I just feel like if we just bring it all in and just be in the very like now moment, you just feel so different.
Yeah, how hard is that? That is impossible, I have to tell you, I have to say. Like for me, that is impossible. Because, you know, like I have a meditation practice twice a day and it's 15 minutes. I don't like, you know, I'm realistic. I'm not going to sit there and like meditate for an hour. No way. 15 minutes, my brain's dying. Like, because I'm trying, all I do in meditation is just to be in the moment as the moment is. That I'm giving myself every opportunity where I've got a room where it's quiet. I've deliberately removed as many distractions as possible to give myself the best opportunity I can to just be here in the moment. 15 minutes max, and I dart all over the place. So at first I thought the whole idea was to not dart all over the place, that you're not allowed to have thoughts, that, you know, you're not allowed to be anywhere. I figured out for me that is like, it's impossible. I'm always going to have thoughts. I exist. I breathe. I'm conscious. Of course I'm going to have thoughts. It's definitely like just sort of going, oh, that's interesting. Now I'm having a thought. That's part of being present in the moment, isn't it? It's like, I'm having a thought. What am I going to do about that thought? Well, nothing right now, because I'm just sitting here noticing, and that thought has gone and another one has arisen, and you don't physically or mentally or emotionally have to do anything about them. But being here in the moment, just as the moment, for the moment, to just be present in it, that's Buddha business. Like that's when you absolutely ascend, you know, into Buddhahood.
Yeah, and I think that like meditations are a bit tricky because we kind of feel like we have to do it in quiet, but I've just found over the years the best form of meditation for me is just to listen to music and drift with it. And I end up like I end up being able to just shut the thinking off, and sometimes my consciousness gets taken to another place, and it's all with the heart. Like if you listen to music that pulls at the heartstrings, you could get to connect as well. And yeah, I just say to people, again, don't overcomplicate it. It's just being quiet in the moment and just drift to music. If you can't do anything else, that's my chosen thing to do. I just put something that pulls on my heartstrings, and yeah, it can just have the effect that I want it to.
For me, it's walking. I love walking. Like for me, it's like I enjoy having, basically all those things are distractions. Like we're using a distraction, we're using a tool, we're using something to help us, you know, open ourselves up into this other dimension. And I absolutely, when I walk, I've realized I use the rhythm of my feet and my breath in another way, and I become really conscious of my body and my existence in my body and my breath, and then I start to choose my thoughts a lot more carefully. So I spend a lot of my walking meditations are chanting. Like I chant, you know, lately, like I'll chant things like, this is really basic, like people think it has to be really complicated or it's like really, but it's not. I mean, for me, like as I breathe in, I just breathe in, I am love. As I breathe out, I breathe, I am peace. And I make a choice. It doesn't have to be that even. It can be literally whatever it is I decide. But I make a choice, and then I just do that for the walk. And I just, you know, and you forget, you know, you'll be midway through breathing in, I am love. I forget before I've even breathed out. I'm thinking about like 5 other things, and then like I've gone through a few breaths and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot. Oh, just start somewhere. Okay, I am peace. I'm breathing in, I am peace. I am breathing out, I am love. I am breathing in, I am peace. I am breathing. And then in between breathing in and breathing out, I've forgotten again. And I'm in the past and I'm ruminating over something that happened 20 years ago. And then I'm like, oh, I forgot. Come back. And it's such a challenging process to just literally be here and choose your thoughts, be here and choose your response, be here, because we don't. We're like, boo, 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 anywhere I'm gonna go. Music, I can't actually do music. It's too stimulating for me, and I need things to be way less stimulated.
I tell people not to listen to music when they're trying to sleep. I'm like, don't have music. That's why meditation tracks with music for sleep. No music. I've got a sleep track on my YouTube. There's no music because it stimulates the brain. It's like musicians have the most complex like brain activity when they're playing. So I'm like, no music.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. For years, solfeggios were my go-to. For years, solfeggios. I slept with the solfeggios playing. It worked so well for me. Now, not at all. Now, I can listen to a solfeggio for about maybe 5 seconds, and I'm like, okay, no, I need silence. There's a cosmic, primal thing about silence, and I think that's sort of at this stage that I'm in now. This is where I am. I think I've really gotten to the point where that silence is golden, definitely for me. It's right, because when I'm coming back to myself, when you come back to self, you come back through many different layers, very many different understandings, many different versions of what self is, because there is an essential self, the one that transcends time, space, and lifetimes, right? But that's also growing and evolving constantly. There's no constant one essential self, but you can have the essential self that's sort of like your soul entity self, but then your spiritual existence self, like your spark of life, like your unique spark in the universe. And that universe is actually quite quiet. That's where I've come to right now anyway. That's subject to change, as all things do, especially with me. They can change really quite rapidly. So at this moment in time, it's definitely turned into quiet, because as I said, I was really reliant on solfeggios and my crystal ball, and I use sound a lot. I also am quite musical as well. So I became very dependent on sound to transcend me and to get me where I desired to be, until it stopped working, until my body went, oh, okay, that's enough of that. It's time to learn some new skills now. We're doing something different. I was just like, I don't want to do something different. I like this being like this and not changing. Body was like, we're going to do silence. I'm like, no, that's really confronting. That's awful. I'll have to be here with myself. No, anything but that. So that's where it is. It's like we're learning. We're learning this quiet stillness and silence, and silence is deafening. It is deafening. Oh wow, it is.
Yeah, it can be. So I wanted to ask you, what made you get into Chinese medicine, and the acupuncture?
Yeah, it's such a great question. Lots of people have asked me that, how did you end up here? I'm actually going to start it back as a little kid. Was quite sick as a little kid. I had a pretty intense family life, and through that I got fairly sick. There was a couple of things that ended me in hospital. One was the tonsillectomy, which is very, very famous in the 70s. Nearly everyone got their tonsils taken out in the 70s, didn't we? In the 80s. Straight after the tonsillectomy, I ended up with meningitis. So I had 2 back-to-back hospitalizations. The tonsillectomy, you have that razor sore throat, but you get fed jelly and ice cream, so it's okay. Meningitis, no fun at all. That was a nightmare. And when they do lumbar punctures back then, they don't sedate you. So you have to be awake, and you have to be a part of the process. And I saw the needle on the tray. It was really long. And I started spinning out right there. They wouldn't allow my mother in the room with me. They made her sit down the hall. So I got a lumbar puncture, and I kicked and screamed and kicked and screamed and kicked and screamed. They had like 4 nurses holding me down. I was 7. I was not a big person. 4 nurses holding me down, and a doctor swearing at me, getting so pissed off with me because I wouldn't just lie still and let him stick this enormous needle in my spine. I was just like,
that sounds horrible.
it was so traumatic since then. And then I got put in isolation. They found out I had meningitis. They had me on the ward with the other kids, and then they're like, meningitis, quick. Isolation. That was after the lumbar puncture. So like I went from being like grossly unwell, holy crap, there's something special about that fever, that nausea, that meningitis illness. It's definitely very, very, very unwell. Then the lumbar puncture, then isolation. And as a 7-year-old, that was a really big experience. And I really noticed that experience. And I never forgot it. Like the nurses would be coming in, and they'd be waking me up in the middle of the night, giving me needles. It may have been delirious. That may not have been the middle of the night, but I was kind of always asleep, I guess. So I was always being woken up to be stabbed with needles. And I remember saying to one nurse once, like, no more needles. And like, how many more needles are you going to give me? Goes, oh, this is the last one, darling. Blatant fucking lie, because like within like a few more hours, here comes another one, stabby, stabby, stab. And they were also really quite mean. They were like, well, aren't you being silly? Like the doctor with the lumbar puncture, he was like, well, aren't you a silly sausage? You won't be getting any jelly beans, for that behavior. And like, how could you, like you're making my life really difficult.
Jeez.
What? And that the nursing staff weren't too dissimilar. They were like, be good for me so I can stab you with this needle. As a 7-year-old, none of this makes sense. None of this is like, oh, naturally, I'll just lie here. One nurse said to me, it's only hurting because you're like this all the time. If you relax and, allow me to do this, it'll hurt less. And I was just like, all righty, I'll give it a shot. So I tried to relax with the next needle. I tried to not be as tense for the next needle. I don't recall if it did hurt any less. But from that experience, I actually became kind of pathologically afraid of needles and hospitals and doctors. And just people like, how did you end up in acupuncture? I'm like, yes.
Big needles. They're like...
Yeah, and then like they're big siphony tubes. Yeah, acupuncture needles are literally like hairs. There's a big difference, but not really. You're still stabbing things into people's skin. But it's really interesting. So that experience, or that sort of combination of experiences, really put me off hospitals. Like the smell of hospitals would send me into like panic. The thought of hospitals, all of that kind of stuff. So I was out of home by the time I was 16. So by the time I was like 18 and 19, I'd started myself on a whole food vegetarian diet. I actually never liked meat either. So as soon as I was out of home at 16, I was like, yes, I never have to eat meat again. Oh, sweet relief. Like I was force-fed meat. Oh,
wow.
So, a lot of things kind of happened really early for me. So before I turned 20, I'd been through like a few different spiritual practices with Ashtanga yoga, always chose natural medicine. As soon as I was independent from my family, I was choosing natural medicine. I did Sahaja yoga very young, introduced by a boyfriend at the time, and just absolutely loved that. Was really into experimenting with meditation, and moving into like dedicated whole food diet at 19, and like dedicated. I made my own soy milk. I made my own tofu. I ground my own millet flour. Like seriously, everything I do is done through extremes. I don't know any other way. Everything I do is extreme. So after a while, after about 10 years, of like using natural medicine, learning about natural medicine. So I picked up a lot of books on folk remedies and folk medicines, and I would go out and pick the herbs and look for the herbs and read about them and cure them and use them to help myself just stay well, like, because I wasn't really exactly sick. And at 23 I had a baby, and the first time my child got sick, you know, things got a bit different because I was caring for someone else. And so I went to like everybody, the naturopath, the homeopath, like the GP. I didn't rule anyone out. Everyone got a turn. It's just like, you know, I found out that the GPs really were quite useless. So I went there anyway because like, as I said, I'm a curious person and I like a diagnosis. Most of us do. But then I would choose whether I would follow up with their recommendations or not. And obviously wouldn't, because a lot of the times the recommendations, well, we don't know, so just give your baby this steroid or give your baby this pill. And I'll be like, yeah. Might find out what the others say. So go see a naturopath, go see a homeopath. And then as the years kind of rolled on, by the time my baby was around 2, when I went to see Chinese medicine practitioners, he got better so much quicker. Like, it was kind of instant. Like, we'd go see Chinese medicine, they'd diagnose in their weird, freaky little like voodoo kind of way where they just seem to know things, and it's like, wow, this is so mysterious and bizarre, and you know, your results are so instant. Like, you know, like, how do I find out more about this? Like, how do I find out more about Chinese medicine? By the time my second child was born, this is like another 10 years down the line, I'd started, you know, thinking that I'll study naturopathy, I'll study diet, but it really wasn't what I wanted to do. And I ended up in this TAFE course called Women Out of Work. Wow. And it was for like all of us mums who, like, you know, government's like, you should be back at work when you've got a toddler on your hip. And so I was like there doing this like computer course, so I was absolutely useless at, so useless, like beyond useless. I'm still a shocking like technophobe, always have been. And she, you know, one of the components was like, you know, what is it that you really want to do that you're like, oh. And so I fessed up one day, and you know, in a TAFE course, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, this sounds a bit really kind of silly, but I've always like wanted to study Chinese medicine. And they're all like, did you know there's a Chinese medicine college just down the road? And I'm like, yeah, but you know, I wouldn't exactly, you know, it's not like I'm going to do it. And they're like, why wouldn't you do it? Like, if you're interested and you're obviously not interested in computers, like, why don't you? And I was just like, because I'm probably not smart enough. I don't know, you know, you come up with so many excuses, and it's just like, well, I'm just a mom, and you know, I've got these 2 kids, and you know what, maybe I should. And they kind of encouraged me. They kind of like very gently, but very not very gently, poked me out the door and went, it's just down the road. Just go into admin and see what the requirements are. Literally within months, I found I'd enrolled, and that I'd started in learning Chinese medicine. Now, I've always been really herbally focused. So when I went into Chinese medicine, I enrolled for the whole course of like herbs and acupuncture. And I spent most of my Chinese medicine college days very focused into herbs and getting through acupuncture. It's sort of like, yeah, P equals degree, you know. but I didn't actually. I've never been like that. I was actually like really driven to get distinctions and high distinctions. I did have a nervous breakdown at the end because that was like ridiculous with 2 babies. Yeah, that was ridiculous. And then working as well, and you know, like, because it was a private college, so I had to pay for everything up front, or I didn't get the education. So I worked myself into the ground, literally focused a lot on the herbalism. I understand herbs. I already had a really good affinity with herbs. Me and herbs, really good mates. After I graduated, I found that people don't love herbs as much as I do. I don't know if you know about Chinese medicine, but you know, when the cooked herbs, like they're the raw herbs. That's what people say. I'm just like, I don't know. It's like, it's medicine, you know? What, do you think medicine's meant to taste like fucking, like cotton candy? What? No, it's medicine. It's like, you just deal with it, you know? But yeah, no, people were really not very compliant. And I was really into my herbs, and I was really into prescribing them, and people were not that into taking them. So then I started to go, okay, well, I might start to do a bit more acupuncture then. Lo and behold, me being me, went from one extreme to the other into like, wow, actually, I want to know more. Like the acupuncture that we taught in college, like what we were saying before, that really basic version of acupuncture and Chinese medicine that you get taught in college is incredibly inadequate and absolutely useless clinically. I mean, not useless clinically, that's a bit extreme, but it's such a basic fundamental. It's just like, here's the alphabet. That's not making words. That's not writing essays. That's just an alphabet. So you get given an alphabet. So once I sort of started practicing acupuncture on people, I got really curious and I started to really evolve my acupuncture skills. Turns out I have a bit of a knack, and it's turned into my primary modality, which is just, I did not see that coming. When I caught up with colleagues like 5 years later, it's just like, they're like, oh, wow, you and your herbs must be off chops by now. And I'm like, you're not going to believe this, but I do more acupuncture. And they're like, no one saw that coming. Like, oh, I did not see that coming, you know. And then some of my really like dedicated acupuncture colleagues who were like all acupuncture through college, just like, we've actually moved into herbs. It's like, what? Oh, we're all so unpredictable. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's unexpected.
that's how it kind of evolved.
Yeah, I guess
Also,
you do what people want.
yeah, I had to get over it.
Sorry?
I had to get over the needle phobia. The needle phobia was kind of my barrier to acupuncture. In college, you have to pass acupuncture by doing acupuncture, and to pass acupuncture, you must learn to acupuncture yourself. So there's many classes where you're sitting there just practicing needle insertion, like your needle technique. That's years worth, just technique. When you go to do your internship in China, they rarely let you stick a needle in a patient. They're like, no, you're not qualified. There's no way we're going to let you loose with a needle in a patient. You can needle yourself. You can stuff up as much as you like on yourself. So you spend a few years acupuncturing yourself and going, oh, that really hurt, until you refine your technique. When you refine your technique, you figure out and understand how it works. One of the biggest things they teach you in acupuncture school or in Chinese medicine school, and in the dialect of the Cantonese teachers that we had, finger force. Finger force. You're not inserting a needle. You're actually channeling the chi from your intention, from your mind, from your heart, through your hands. And you're really concentrating that focus and that intention through a needle and then into the body. So finger force, it's not about like jamming it in. It's about allowing the chi to flow from your fingers, and then you kind of, the acupuncture kind of, the needle kind of flies into the body. It's kind of hard to explain. Everyone has their own different way. A whole bunch of people use a tube, a guide tube, where the needle's in a plastic tube, and they just put the thing on the body and they just tap it in and pull the tube off. And then so like that never worked for me. It was too fumbly. I would drop things. I ended up with my fingers all over the needle once I pulled the tube off. I was just really bit uncoordinated with the old tube thing. So I dedicated myself to teach myself needle insertion on myself. And the better I got at needle insertion, the more I started to understand the beauty of acupuncture. And it was that process of needling myself and getting better and better and better and better at it, and really like focusing what my teachers told me about using your intention and then channeling that intention through your hands, through your fingers, and then into the needle and then into the body. And that has just progressed. And that's still like for the rest of my life, I will be perfecting and, refining needle insertion, just needle insertion, like just even that one tiny aspect is like a lifetime of practice. Different needle insertion techniques too. Of course, there is there is many. Being Chinese medicine, of course, there is more than one way to insert a needle. So yeah, there is many techniques to try. So yeah, I just kind of got fascinated.
Yeah. So can you do you do children? And that was my question. Do you do children? And how are they with it? And or pets?
I do pets. I've definitely needled my own dogs. Not all, like humans, not all dogs will lie there and take it. My dog was notoriously bad at receiving acupuncture. It's like that with your own kid, you know, like I've tried when I needle my own children. I made a massive mistake. I tried to needle my children when I was still a student because I was just so incredibly keen and I wanted to heal the world. And my needle insertion techniques are probably a little bit crap. And of course, I hurt my children. My children were like, no, we hate acupuncture. So that was ruled out for me. I actually don't. I know, I totally, so no, that my children won't. Like they'll drink herbs though. Drink herbs, doesn't matter how, like, yeah, they've had some pretty brutal concoctions over, like, you know, whooping cough medicine and measles medicine and chickenpox medicine. They've been through it all and they will drink the medicine, but they won't have like a needle. I generally don't needle children, mainly because their chi is so vibrant and so close to the surface that it doesn't really require, it's you have to have a really sick child to need acupuncture, from my perspective. My perspective is literally only my perspective. When my youngest was a baby, he was quite unwell, and I took him to TCM Pracky, and she did needles in him. I tend to use energetic. I can use like that technique of channeling through your fingers. I use my fingers instead of using needles. So I tend to use kind of like a version of acupressure. I do use a lot of talking. I channel through their body by picking up what their body's energetically wanting, or what they're like, that psychic intuitive connection about what it is with their body, and I bring that out by talking about it, clearing it out through the air. I also do a technique on children that we call gua sha, and that is just so effective because children's energy is so vibrant and it moves quick. It is so quick and it's really on the surface. Like, children move fast, so less is always more for me with children. So I do the bare minimum on kids because we actually want to help their body move into a state of healing without doing it for them. So it's like I open up the channels and I open up the way, and I watch their bodies fill that gap, and then they're like, whoop, ba-dum, ba-dum, and they're off and away. So when I give them herbs, I say to their parents, like, give them herbs until you notice significant change, and then stop. Don't keep giving them herbs. Their body does the rest. So we want their immune system and their body to complete the cycle. We just start with the herbs until, you know, we've gotten over the worst of it, and then we stop and we let their body do the rest. So it's all about creating resilience and strength, and it's all about helping and guiding the little ones' bodies to actually do it themselves, because they will. Their energy moves so quick. They are so fast. Like us adults, like, you know, you can stick a needle in, you have to really dredge up the chi to try and bring the chi even to the needle. Like, it's like, come on, chi, you can do it. Whereas kids, you know, it's all there. They're in the vibrancy of life. So,
and I guess
yeah,
as soon as they start feeling better, they will just grab that and run with it, won't they?
They do. And that's, our bodies are designed to do that, right? Our bodies are self-healing, essentially. We don't actually, there's nothing broken in us. It's just what we do with it. So, yeah, that's why I always say, like, especially with the kids, when they're still developing their immune system and their bodies are still developing a lot of these ways on self-healing, is that we give it every opportunity to do that. The body's intelligence is phenomenal. So it's just like, yeah, stop as soon as you notice that. So let's say coughing, right? So the most common thing with kids is they either got snot, the number 11s, and the cough. And so I just say, just give them herbs until the urgency of the situation, yeah, the number 11, the urgency of the situation has stopped, and then, like, let their body clean up the rest. You'll be surprised at how fast the body cleans up the rest. But if you don't give the body that opportunity, it'll just sit around and wait. So it's like, oh, I don't need to do it myself. I'll just wait for my herbs. It's like, no. No, you won't. You will clean up the rest yourself. So yeah, that's my perspective anyway. I have a very unique perspective.
Yeah. So do you get, have you noticed an interest in, noticed a change in interest over the last, like from when you started to now? Like, have you gotten busier, or have you seen a difference in clients, or are your the people that come see you generally the same people that come for different things, or do you get new people?
Yeah, that's really interesting too. That's all changed because I have changed. So when I started, as you know, like I wasn't really that discerning. I was just like, I'm here to heal everyone, you know. Initially I was really fascinated with like from a herbal perspective, I was very much into kids. I wanted to, because I had kids. So I was focused on kids because I had kids and they were getting sick all the time, and I was always giving them well, not sick all the time, but they would get seasonal illness or they get a childhood illness. And so I was really invested in kids. I'm really passionate, and I'm a big advocate of natural birth. I'm a home birthing mum myself. So a lot of my focus in the beginning was around women and children, because kind of that's where I was at. As I've grown and my children have grown, and I've sort of kind of developed myself in many different ways, my practice has changed because I've steered it in ways. So then I went into chronic illness. I really wanted to focus on people with autoimmune disorders and that kind of like chronic illness that always got a root in the emotional trauma experience. And I really wanted to give relief to that. That's quite heavily herbal as well, and a lot of those people don't really feel like they want to have to deal with all the herbs. With everything else, there's a lot of medical intervention that comes with autoimmune disorders, and it becomes too much, like, you know. So I sort of like steered away from that. Then I decided that I actually prefer working with women rather than just anybody. So it's not like that I won't see men, but it's a certain type of man that comes to my clinic these days. Like, so the man that just has like a bung shoulder and wants you to stick some pins in it, I don't do that anymore. That's not my thing anymore. I don't.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't do that anymore. I used to just be like, absolutely, like, let's do this, and like, yeah. It's not my thing anymore. I'm actually not into that. A few years ago, I was really into that. Like, I really wanted to target people's muscle skeletal pain, but I've sort of like been there, done that, kind of got bored. And now I've moved into, yeah, definitely the more spiritual, the psycho-emotional, but definitely the more spiritual.
And
it's all about.
And do you think you're having more results in this way?
I've never had, it's not really quantifiable because there's such different things.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't get any less results, and I don't get any more results because they're all just as effective. It's just that we're working on really different things. So if people come and they're like, you know, my back's out, I can't move, I'm not going to sit there and like only do like energetic spiritual work on them. Like, no, they've got a back spasm. You actually need to address that. So because I'm actually incredibly good at that, I do that for the first like 20 minutes. Like, back pain's relieved, right? We've got an hour. So, you know, in the past, I just sit there and I just address the back pain and I drift away and do something else. Now I stay present with my patient. Oh, I only work one-on-one. I used to work in multiple, I used to work with multiple people. It's really common. In China, it's like you put pins in, you walk away, put pins in the next person, walk away, put pins in the next person. Like, you know, that's how it's done.
Yeah, that's how it is done.
Huh?
Yeah, that's how I thought it is done. That's what's happened to people I know. They've gone in and they've just laid there while they go off and do other stuff.
Right. And that's how we get taught. That's normal. And also, if you want to make money, doing more than one person an hour is a really good way to actually create an income. I have a very bizarre way of doing things, and I only work one-on-one, which I can say is definitely not a good money spinner, but the payoff for me is that I'm focused on that individual solidly for an hour. And the things that I've noticed and observed that come up for a person in that hour while they're transitioning through the cycle of pins. So you put the pins in, you're moving chi through the meridians. The meridians are shifting and changing, and the diseases and the unwellness and the things that you're going through are also shifting and changing. And if I can address those shifts and change on the bed while they're happening with the person in that moment, then we do go through a lot more than just your back pain. So your back pain came from something, didn't it? Didn't just like, it wasn't henny penny. It didn't just fall out of the sky, you know. So let's figure out, or let's, like, as your body is bringing it up to the surface in awareness, let's actually address it and deal with it. So I find that for me, I find it a lot more satisfying as a practitioner, because we're actually really getting into it rather than just like band-aiding it. Like, okay, yep, that will help your pain. You should sleep better tonight. But we haven't really addressed anything. All we've done is, like, you know, a bit of analgesia. That's, yeah, here's some stretches, here's some analgesia. That's not enough for me anymore. It used to be. I used to be like stoked with that result. That's actually like an inferior result for me in my practice these days. I actually want more. I expect more. I want more. I want to go further with it. But if the body doesn't present, I also don't go fishing for it. Like, this is the subtleties of it. I don't sit there and make people have to go through this process. If it doesn't present, it doesn't present. I'll literally sit down and just play the crystal ball then. If nothing else comes up, they're just sitting there, they're doing their thing, they're going through their analgesic treatment. If nothing else presents, I don't pry. I don't try to bring it up. I don't try to make it happen. I just leave it be, because if it's not there, it's not there. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, because maybe in those situations, it literally is just an injury from something that they've done, rather than being something that's been manifesting from a trauma.
Right. But you don't want to miss the trauma. That's if it's embedded trauma and it's manifesting as back pain, you want to be onto that. But yeah, if it's nothing but like, just like got a spasm, you don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill. You really need to address the thing for what it is. And if it's more than just back spasm, then you want to address that. If it's not, then you just want to address that. So definitely in Chinese medicine, we have this philosophy that we get taught called the Bun and the Biao, which is like the root and the branches. So it's like, the analogy there is really obvious. You either treating the root, what's wrong with the root cause, or you're treating the branches. So a lot of the time it's like, if there's a sick leaf, if the leaves are falling off the tree, you know, do you just cut off some branches? Like, is that the solution? No more leaves, no more problem? Or what's happening at the root, you know? But at the same time, as we said, if someone's turning up with this back pain, like spasmy, and they can't stand and they can't sit and they can't move, then there's no point going, interesting, so what happened in your childhood? That is not the time and the place to be going there. So it's definitely understanding the root and the branches situation and how to apply both as they present, yeah, in the most appropriate way.
Yeah. And so when someone comes to you, do they need like a diagnosis from their doctor first, or like what happens when someone first walks in for the first time?
That's a really good question too. You do good questions. It depends. It's interesting. I actually, as I said earlier, I'm a bit fond of diagnosis. I do like to know. I'm incredibly curious, and I do tend to ask people, like, have you had your bloods done? Like, what did your blood say? Like, what did GP say? Have you had an X-ray? What does that look like? Like, you know, and they're like, oh, yeah, I have, or no, I haven't, or yeah, I did. They said something about T, what, something? And I'm like, well, if it's in your neck, it's not going to be a T, it's probably a C. Do you remember any other number? Don't worry, I already know. I can see it's C3. So, okay, so C3, yep, no problem. The other thing is too, is that I actually read the body really well. But there's certain things that I can't read. Obviously, like, you know, they go, God, how, you know, you've got these little X-ray fingers. And it's like, yeah, but they're not. Like, you know, our bodies present in ways that are really obvious, but I do like, in certain circumstances, so especially when you've got people with a lot of complex history, a lot of really mixed pathologies, all these things happening. So if they're like saying, oh, you know, I'm really tired and I don't know why, and I will ask, have you had your bloods done? Have you gone and got your thyroid tested? Have you looked at this? Have you looked at that? Please do go and test those things out, because I can't diagnose that. I can't tell. I'm a Chinese medicine practitioner. I am not going to be able to know definitively if this is an issue for you. And if it is, you need to address it in as many ways as you can. And getting a diagnosis is a beautiful way to know. And that way we know what we're working with, even though we don't work in Western medical diagnoses. So the challenge there is being able to interpret Chinese medicine diagnosis and Western medicine diagnosis. So let's say you've got an underactive thyroid. We don't call that. That doesn't exist in Chinese medicine. So we'd call it qi and yang deficiency. So we would, if you say, I've got an underactive thyroid, my brain goes, qi and yang deficiency, great. We're treating kidney yin deficiency, probably with an underlying spleen deficiency, and, you know, probably maybe with a bit of yang, lung qi deficiency as well, like blah, 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 blah. So the Chinese medicine diagnosis is its own unique thing. So when people come and they want a diagnosis from me, or they say, you know, can you fix my thyroid, for example? No, I can't fix your thyroid, but I can fix your kidney yang qi deficiency. I can fix your qi deficiency. I can fix your, you know, I can work with spleen qi deficiency. I can work with the Chinese medicine diagnosis, but I can't directly work on your Western medical diagnosis. Does that make sense? That can be,
yeah. But whatever you do for them, so how would you treat that? For example, like, would it be herbs? So do most people have both acupuncture and herbs, or do you do just one for either?
Yeah, that's changed a lot over the years too. I used to be, as I said, really herb heavy, whereas like I had this in early, like when I was like graduating from herbs into acupuncture, herbs was a staple. Everyone got herbs, because in the way that I thought back then, you need herbs and then you kind of supplement with acupuncture. As I was saying earlier, the extremes of one always turn into the other. So now it's like acupuncture is the mainstay, and I supplement with herbs occasionally. And I generally only give herbs if it's really needed. So for things like, you know, like a lingering cough, or like lingering chest congestion, or shingles, or something fairly extreme, yeah, you'll get herbs. You'll get acupuncture and herbs. But generally, you'll get acupuncture, you'll get like the intuitive healing as well, the energetic healing part of it as well, the emotional, energetic, intuitive healing part of it as well. And sometimes maybe, like, usually that's a lot already. That's usually enough. But if I see someone and the next time there hasn't been a significant enough change for my liking, I will go, you know what do you think if we just we'll just give you some herbs and just help really nudge this along a bit? Because again, I'm realizing that less is more, and that just taking lots of stuff isn't necessarily the solution to a lot of people's illnesses, and adding more things in, because herbs have to be taken away from food because they are food. So they have to be drunk with a lot of water. You know, not that that's a problem, but people come sick and they're often overloaded. So I try to keep it really, really simple, and I try to get them to tune into their bodies and work with their bodies. As I said, I work one-on-one, so it's a concentrated hour. Like, we're not just sticking pins in, walking away. Like, you work hard on this bed. You do. People are like, like, it's like, yeah, it's a workout. You have worked hard. You have worked hard to help yourself heal today. So if that hasn't been enough, then I will give you herbs as well. Generally, though, the work that we accomplish on the bed is often enough. Except if it's like, yeah.
And so how many times would someone come for something?
How long's a piece of string? Honestly, okay. I used to do prescriptions. Because, you know, we now westernized understanding of what wellness is. Also in college, we're taught, you know, a prescription of acupuncture is generally like between 4 and 10 for a cycle. I've abandoned that as well. I don't even do that anymore. My whole focus these days is to get people to listen to their bodies, to be self-responsible, to be self-accountable, and to actually invest themselves into coming back when they know they need to. So these days, it's not great for people returning because they're like, oh, that was a bit confusing. She didn't tell me exactly what, she wants me to do. It's like, because it's not up to me. I'm not living in your body. I'm not you. I want you to know what you need to do for you, not because I tell you to. So anyone who's ever seen me will hear me say at the end, they'll go, when do I need to come back? And I'm like, your treatment will generally wear off in about 3 days. You'll notice it. Then I leave it up to you. I leave it up to you to process what you've just gone through, to process where you are in your life, to process this treatment that we've had, and for you to respond accordingly about coming back and continuing care or not. Because a lot of the time, I remember you saying, so you didn't say while we've been talking, but I looked at your videos and you're like, you see people once. And it ends up being like that. Sometimes, people go through one major session and they're like, wow, and that's it for months. They don't come back for months. Then when they do come back, they say one of two things. I'm really sorry. I don't know why you're apologizing to me. You don't need to be sorry to me. I really should have come back earlier. Or like, wow, I haven't needed to come back until now. So if I'm prescribing you to come back weekly when you don't even need to come back for like a month, then you're never going to really be able to get the medicine that you need from the medicine. You're never really going to be able to move in accordance with your body and to know what your body needs and how your body needs it. And then we're kind of in that situation where we're over-prescribing again. Even if it's natural medicine, it still can be over-prescribing, where we kind of like create a dependence for people to use this medicine. And it's like, I guess it wasn't really decided. It just sort of like morphed into this way of practicing that I really want people to become more self-reliant and for them to understand what their needs are. Instead of coming to me going, what are my needs? I'm like, I don't know, you're you. How do I know? Like, that's up for you to figure out and for me to remedy a situation that needs remedying.
Yeah. That's kind of like just kickstarting their healing journey, just kickstarting them, helping them to get over that first hurdle and then take that with them and see how it evolves for them.
Right. And this is what I say to them. And I'm like, there's no limit to acupuncture. I have given myself acupuncture. The most amount of times I've given myself acupuncture was 6 times in one day. The limit to acupuncture is that if you do it too much, it's too confusing. The body's just like, what? Now what? Like, she's moving. You want to do, you're just going to acupuncture all the meridians for what purpose? I tried it. It's kind of a waste of needles. But at the same time, multiple acupuncture prescriptions per day is absolutely useful for extreme illness. So in the hospitals in China, if you're hospitalized in a Chinese medicine hospital in China, you will get multiple acupuncture per day. Like you do the rounds, you do acupuncture for the morning rounds, acupuncture for the midday rounds, acupuncture for the evening rounds, depending on what they're sick with. And how sick they are. So sometimes they're so unwell that, there's not enough, she's not holding at all. And they do get herbs prescribed as well. So they're often on herbs and getting acupuncture. I mean, they're in hospital. Come on, they're really unwell. They're not like, they can't go home. Yeah. So they're getting kind of round the clock treatment. So in that setting, absolutely, you get acupuncture more than once a day. You can get acupuncture every single day. There's maintenance acupuncture. There's, acupuncture for literally everything.
Wow. So I didn't know that they have Chinese medicine hospitals. Like, I didn't know that there was a thing that people could go to and be in like a hospital. So would that mean that the different practitioners, they'd have to keep notes and like tell each other what they've done? Would that be a thing?
I love the system. I only went to one hospital. I went to a hospital in Guangzhou, and it's talk about self-responsibility. This is probably what planted the seed all those years ago in my internship. The patient has their own records book. and they bring it to the practitioner. And you don't have appointments. You put your book down on the desk, and then the next person puts their book down on your book, and then the next 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 book, and it just goes along in a line. So when the practitioner turns up, they go to the first book on the pile, read out your name, you go in, and then, you know, you open your book, he writes everything that needs to be written in your book, hands your book back to you, and then hands your prescription over to you as well. So you actually are the one responsible for your records. If you've never been, you won't have a book. If you've been multiple times, everything will be in your book. So it's really such an incredible system because it's super efficient. None of this like, oh, the computer's not responding, or I just can't seem to find your file, or, you know, it's just like, if you forgot your book, to start a new one, I guess. I don't know. No one forgot their book. There was no one there that didn't have a book. They all had this incredible sense of self-responsibility. They also don't have a sense of personalized, you know, being in the room by yourself, alone with the doctor, being by yourself here, being by yourself. So for the diabetes clinic, for example, was a very social affair. So, you know, the books go down, doctor calls out, the door never closes because there's like 40 books lined up. You know, that's a lot of people to see. So, you know, the doctor goes in, opens the book, blah, 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 talks about their sugars. People are leaning in, they're interested. Oh yeah, how's your sugars been this month? No, that is too high. And they'll sit there with that person going, 20 is too high. No. Oh, goodness, that's terrible. You know, you've got to manage your sugars better than that. And they sit there and just go, oh, geez. You know, there's this huge social responsibility about being well. And also they learn collectively, like they're invested collectively. So when they're all in there listening to each other's results and their sugars, they're invested, not just for themselves, but for each other as well. And it's such a beautiful example of like that human community and that human collective.
Are there many of them around China? Are they everywhere, those hospitals?
Yep, they're everywhere. I mean, there's the Zhongyi, like traditional medicine hospital, and then there's the Western medicine hospital. I think what's happening, well, I don't know because I haven't been there in the last 10 years, but, you know, what the trend has been is that people are using traditional medicine less and less and less and relying a lot more on Western medicine. So I don't know. I would love to think that China invests in her traditional medicine still because it's such an incredible system. So even in the so for example, in the gynecology department, this is how efficient they are. This blew my mind. I was trying to explain to the students, I'm like, in Australia, this process would take weeks if you do it all in one day. Literally, you do it in hours. So they go, pick up your book, open it, go, rightio, what are we working on? Here's your slip. Go get an ultrasound. Come back. Give your book back. Literally like 40 minutes later, the woman's back with her ultrasound ticket, puts the book back on the desk. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's your ultrasound result. Okay, here's your ticket. Go and get your procedure. Like that. And then here's your other ticket, but here's your herbs. So it's just like, what? Like, you can't do that in a day in Australia. Like, you just can't. Like, you have to, like, go to a whole other place to get your ultrasound. You have to wait. Then you have to wait for the results to come back. Then you have to go and see the doctor again, and it drags out. And they're just like, why?
Yeah.
And I'm like, because we don't have as many people as you do. So we've got a system bound up in bureaucracy. But I guess when you've got a huge amount of people, you need a really efficient process to get through them.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I wonder, like, there's so many people, well, not so many, but I've heard of several people that I know in the mountains that are like opening up healing centers and stuff. And I just like the idea of a health book. So wouldn't it be great if people had their own health book and they kind of write down, you know, what they've had and you know, when they go to the next practitioner, they can go, oh yeah, you've tried that.
Yeah, I think they've probably got like an acupuncture book, a herb book, a tweener book. I suspect they've probably got different books, because otherwise you'd be like lugging around an encyclopedia. Yeah, I've got huge dreams of healing villages, like whole towns that are actually dedicated to like healing. So it's like it's not just your modalities, it's everything. Like it's that whole big picture healing. It's like permaculture gardens have to exist. You have to have your labs there so that you can grow your herbs and your food, and you can process your herbs and your food, and you can you also have to make it scientifically potent and correct. You have to know what you're dosing, so you do have a lab there. Your practitioners do have to live on site. You build your own like chemical free homes that are solar passive, that require less energy, that aren't like giving off loads of toxins. Like I said, I've got this huge vision of like these whole towns that are just like dedicated to the most potent healing, concentrated potent healing centers. They're not even based on money. It's just like there's no like, you can't buy your way in because money's not actually needed. What you need is participation. So if you're wheelchair bound and you can only wake up for twice a day for a couple of minutes, then your duties are going to be pretty non-existent. But if you're able and mobile, and let's say you can clean 5 windows in a day, then that's your contribution. Or if you're really quite got good, you're doing much better now, and you're here for mental illness reasons or whatever, you could be contributing in the kitchen, or you could be contributing in the gardens, or you could be a lab assistant, or you could be building houses. It doesn't matter. Like I've got this whole
And I think that's not like, I don't think that's so far-fetched, because so many people are like on the same wavelength. I think there's so many that would love something like that. It's probably only a matter of time,
Well, it's been on the cards for me for a while. I've actually, I used to think I would love to bring this to the Blue Mountains. The way that the Blue Mountains is being transformed, I don't think that's going to be viable with a 24/7 airport over us. We're not going to be able to create that environment, unfortunately. Which, I mean, we won't even go there, but it's definitely something to consider. Like, in order to create something like this, it's just like, okay, well, there are a lot of considerations, especially when you've got really sick people. You need a climate that's actually good for people that are really sick. Some people, they can't handle the cold of Mount Vic, so you can't put it in Mount Vic because there's only a limited amount of food that you can grow in Mount Vic. So in order to make this kind of like massive village idea retreat healing village come alive, it's got a lot of specifications that really need to be worked out. So I just keep putting it there in my dream of dreams, and that whole thing of just like dream it, let it go.
Well, I think that a lot of people have the same vision, but it's interesting because I went to Europe a couple of years ago with my family back to where I was born, and so that was in Czech Republic, and they actually do have towns that are specifically for healing, and they have those underwater springs, and people are encouraged to drink it. So they have these taps that come out of the ground, and they're rich in whatever minerals, and they have whole like hotel style hospitals, and people go there for periods of time, and they have practitioners that kind of do whatever they do, and then the people go and drink out of these springs, and it's really amazing. And they have little taps just coming out everywhere, and they have these little they're like shot glasses, and you just sip it. It tastes really foul, and it's
like bore water.
Yeah, and like you can taste the rock in it, like the mineral, and then they have like a plaque just saying about the water and the temperature of it, because some of it's quite like really hot to touch. So they kind of do have these places in Europe, and I've known people that went there, and they have like like pools and everything, so that it's just like a holistic town where people go to heal if they've had cancer treatment or whatever. So I don't know, it would be lovely to see that here, just to have a concentrated place where people can come to, and all the modalities are there: art therapy, acupuncture, regression, bioresonance, whatever.
Bring it on, exactly whatever a person needs. And this is the thing, because think about it, right? Especially, this was sort of born out of desperation of me being in a place where my world had completely collapsed. Everything had stopped for me. I was had like so many problems, and our system doesn't cater for anything, really. It's like, well, if it's not a physical ailment, then we can't help you. And even if it is a physical ailment, we often can't help you anyway if it's not really obvious. And I was just like, you know what? If I had a choice, I would have this, I'd have this, I'd have this, I'd have this, I'd have this. I'd like definitely have DBT, coaching and therapy. I would definitely be opening up spirit. Like, I would want to attend spiritual classes. I would want to work on personal cultivation, but I also need diet therapy. I also need herbs. I also need acupuncture. I also need energetic clearings. I want crystal therapy. I want, like whatever it is that a practitioner can say. I even formulated in my mind at one point. It was just like, you go in for a diagnosis in a panel. So instead of seeing a single practitioner, you go into a panel of practitioners, and you would sort of say what's wrong with you and what you want. And then the panel would devise a repertoire for wellness and healing for you. And then you would discuss that with you and sort of go, this is what we've, talked about. What do you think? So it's very self-involved. It's not like you're just handing your health to someone and going, oh, I don't know what's wrong, fix me. It's like, yeah, you might not always know what's wrong, but you also have a choice in how to help yourself out. And so yeah, it's sort of the model that's brewing in my mind isn't really based on much that exists in the world at present. This whole practitioner-centered care, that's going to go out the window. It's out the window with my model. Yeah, you've got your skills and you're good at what you do, and you're still a consummate professional, but the way that it's done is not that the professional knows best. And even around, okay, this is not anything to do with Blue Mountains practitioners. This is healers worldwide. People my modality is the best. That one's not blah blah blah, and that one's no. I want that to go. I really, really seriously, get your egos out of your bums. That's just got to go. We've all got what we're good at, and the person should be able to choose and move between them. I've heard people come and say I had to stop seeing you because I started seeing this person, and they said that they're not allowed to see anyone else. And I'm like, I actually have a bit of not a rule, but guides around that as well. I do say to people, don't see too many people at once. You don't know what's working, and your body's going to get really confused. But it's getting all the modalities all at once. It can't organize itself. You don't know what's working and what isn't. So I generally say to people, until you know what works for you, until you're in sort of a certain maintenance mode, pick one at a time. If people come to me and they're like, oh, I'm seeing this person, I'm seeing that person, I'm seeing that person, and I'm seeing you, I'll be like, okay, I'll see you once, but I'm probably not going to interfere too much, because you've already got a lot going on. And if you're already invested in these other therapies and these things that are going on, I think you need to see them through. Give them a chance to do what they need to do. And then if they're still not satisfied, come back to me then. But in the meantime, kind of invest in something and then kind of just do it. And then, you'll know whether that's done it for you or not, if you're satisfied with the result or not. But if you're just practitioner hopping, which is a lot of people do a lot of practitioner hopping and a lot of practitioner shopping, where they just just a bit of column A, column B. It's like we're not a chocolate shop. You don't just have a bit of everything. Please.
Yeah. But in doing that, you're not really, well, I feel like you wouldn't be giving everything you've got to following that program that you've been put on by that practitioner. Because if you're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, you're not I don't know, you're probably doing it, everything half-assed. You know?
Yeah. And you're usually not invested. You're usually expecting the therapist to do all the work for you. So it's just like, well, why aren't I getting better? I'm seeing 6 practitioners. And it's just like, well, probably because you're investing all your wellness in 6 other people, but not you. So yeah, come on, come back to you. You know, it's like, it's not actually up to everyone else to fix you. It's like it's like we're all here to help guide you and like balance things out a bit. And, like obviously we've got specialized skills. We've got really specialized knowledge. And our knowledge and our skills is absolutely essential to contributing to people's health and wellness. You're not meant to know it all. I go see people. God, my skills are only in what my skills are in. That's my specialized knowledge. I have a lot of knowledge in this field, but not in others. So I have to go see other people. And this is, how it works. You can't just know everything yourself. And well, that's another thing, isn't it? The old, we are not an island. A lot of people are like, well, yeah, but I'm taking all these herbs and I'm taking all these supplements and, I want to do it myself. And it's just like, you can't. You can't be every practitioner in every modality. You can't be and do it all yourself. There is a limit to how much you can do yourself before you need to break out and get help from someone else.
Absolutely.
I tried the whole I'm an island thing, gave it a red hot go. Tried to be everything I ever needed to be for myself. It's very limited because there is a limit to what you can do.
Well, yeah, I was the same because when I finished my course, I'm like, oh my God, I can fix everyone. And I think that's a really great thing because like we believe in what we do. Like I just think what I do is amazing. And I think that what you do is amazing. But yeah, and then you kind of think, I don't need help. I should know how to fix myself. I should know, what to do and how to do everything. But you kind of get to a point and sometimes you get pushed like, no, go see someone because we also need each other.
Yeah, we do. And we are a community. This is how we grow as human beings. It's just like every time I see another practitioner, I learn something. And I'm into that. I am totally into learning new things. They teach me things about my body that I hadn't considered before. And that, yeah, maybe I would have found it eventually. Maybe I would never have found it. But you know what? Going and seeing someone who just, I remember reading this practitioner called Katie Bowman. She's American. She's an amazing functional body person. And like I'd been doing yoga for 20 years, blah, 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 blah. Like thought I knew a lot about my body. Wow. No. And now I seek out specialists, like people that have really specialized knowledge about the body. That reason, it's just like, my body's doing this. What do you know? What can you do? What can you show me? What can I do? And they go, oh, well, you just need to employ this. And it's just like, no way, didn't even know that was a thing. Wow, you're amazing. Thank you. And wow, what a difference that's made. Just this one tiny little thing about how I put my foot far out, A lady taught me how to stretch my psoas. That wasn't about like incredible like stretching postures. It was literally about like just chucking pillows up into my body in a certain way, relax my psoas. I mean, you're not going to figure that out yourself.
No, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love everyone's knowledge. And the more we see people, the more we learn. The more we learn, the more we employ these knowledge and these skills to ourselves, and the more of a well world we create. I know that there's, we live in a world of scarcity, where we think there's competition and scarcity and there's not enough. And, that practitioners are kind of in competition against each other. We're not. Oh my goodness, that is such a really silly way to look at the world. When we graduated from college, one of the things one of my favorite professors said to me, he's just like, you are a unique group of individuals. You all uphold the integrity and the future of Chinese medicine. Please know that there is enough patients for everybody. You are not, because it's like, you're all living in Sydney, you're all going to be opening up practices in Sydney. Don't feel like you have to compete against each other. Don't try and steal each other's patients. Don't try to feel like, oh, I can't open up here because, you're there and there won't be enough. And he's like, there is enough people for everybody. And there is, because like what we were saying earlier, every individual brings their own unique thing. And every unique thing is offering something to someone in a unique way that no one else can offer. You can see, it doesn't, like, my colleagues do not practice anywhere near the way that I practice. We all went to the same college. We all have completely different ways of delivering, practicing, and treating with Chinese medicine. Not one of us does the same thing.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
And what a wonderful thing for your teacher to say to you guys, like, just to give you, just send you out with that, calmness, like, we're not in competition, because that's what you feel as a practitioner. You're like, okay, I've got to build my practice, I've got to get clients, I've got to do this, got to do that. And you feel so, well, me anyway, I just felt so alone, and I don't want to be businessy. I don't want to, I don't want to be looking for people and how do I word my ad to get across what I do.
Yes.
But yeah, we don't have to be in competition. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to do these Meet Your Therapist, because we're not, like, we offer different things, and like, we can be in a room with 10 people and some will choose you, some will choose me for wherever they are in their life, and some won't need anything.
That's the thing. That's it, isn't it? It's just like, imagine, okay, I'm talking about chocolate again. Obviously, I'm really premenstrual. It's all about chocolate today. But imagine if there was only 2 types of chocolate and you only had to choose from 2. Well, yeah, there's a bit of competition there, so it's like, well, what if you only like one of them? Then there's no choice at all because you don't actually like the other one. So it's like, I know. I think I remember going down to offer some flyers down to another natural medicine center out of the mountains, down the hill a bit in the plains, and they were going, while we put up your flyer, we're natural medicine practitioners too. And I'm like, I thought you'd put up my flyer because we're all in this together and we're all promoting wellness, and that what I'm offering is not what you're offering. We're not cutting anyone's lunches here. We're actually in support of each other. We're on the same team, guys. But you know what? I know that I won't be coming back here to support you, because if that's your ethos and your philosophy, it's really out of alignment with mine. And I really am in the place where I go with that supports and nourishes me, not with, like, I said, why would you want to cut me down? How does that support your business? I'm not going to recommend you now.
Yeah.
It's not, you know what?
Yeah, and I was the same when I kind of did my training and did several clients and stuff. I thought, I might just go put my flyers out as well. And I just got the 3rd degree from everyone. Like, where are you? And who do you train with? And, oh no, we don't promote people. And I'm like, it's not that. It's just, you are a, spiritual shop or whatever. People come here to get ideas for other, to self-help books and stuff. I just thought it would be something you can have in a corner somewhere, but no, I just got the 3rd degree and I just went, all right, that's it, no thanks, people will find me in other ways.
Yeah, and you learn that, don't you? And it's, at first I was butthurt. I was a bit like, oh, I got rejected. Yeah. I got caught up in that competition vibe. Yeah. I fell into it. I felt like, oh no, like, maybe there's nowhere I can put my flyers, maybe, I can't, maybe I'll never get the people and school too hard. And I have fell into that place. If I try to view what I do as a business, I crash.
Yeah.
I crash. I can't do it as a business. Like, I remember watching your video and you said you do it part-time. And, I was working full-time, like ridiculously full-time. I burnt out hugely crashed, learned that lesson too. Guess what? You can work too much. And guess what? It is absolutely not sustainable. And so, yeah, that's one of the things that's brought me back to one-on-one care too. It's just like I literally burnt out. I was working in community acupuncture down in Sydney where we have 15 beds. So I was routinely, it was nothing. It was normal for me to do 10 people at once, hour after hour after hour after hour of 10 people at once. I was very quick. I'm very good at it, you know. Yeah, it's not sustainable for me. Not the way that I work. I am an extreme person. I do get very invested and I kind of put my all in. So when I was trying to put my all in everyone, I crashed and burned in a very major way. So I've decided now that money is not the goal. Seeing as many thousands of people a week is no longer the goal. Like, remove the business. Like, once I got rid of the whole, like, this is a business and the business must be successful, I've become a lot more successful because I'm actually moving in accordance with my needs, my strengths, my capacities. I'm giving 110% every single time to the people that I see. I am not burnt out. I am not working beyond my capacity. I'm absolutely here with someone 100% for the whole time that they're here. I don't leave the room. I don't walk away. I'm attentive the whole time. And for me, that's success. For me, I'm giving everything that I can give to a person. And for me, that's at the moment.
And the interesting thing about me is, well, not interesting, but I had, so I did one of these with Marcus Dabb, who does numerology, and afterwards we exchanged sessions. So he did my numerology and I did hypnosis for him. And like, it was so enlightening to have my numbers read. I never ever knew how much power they would have, or how much power there would be in knowing what my blueprint was at the start. And when you said just then that I do it part-time, that was one of the things that come up in my numbers. So my numbers are that, yes, I'm a master healer, but at the same time, oh, my kitty just jumped up. So yeah, I'm a master healer, but at the same time, my challenges are self-doubt and then that I'm a perfectionist, right? And so just knowing that, like, I'm so glad I started doing these videos without thinking it has to be perfect. I'm like, just press record and chat, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be scripted. And then also with the self-doubt, I'm like, well, I'll just do it. If people don't like it, don't worry about it, you know, just switch away. And then the second thing that came through with the numerology was that my numbers indicate that I can't do 9 to 5. It's not good for me to do the 9 to 5, and that I need
great validation.
Yeah, so I need variety. So my entire working life, I've only done casual jobs, and I do several at a time. So I've done photography, I've been a musician, I've done team building, I do the hypnosis, I've written a book. So I've got this big variety. And the thing is, I used to always beat myself up. I'm like, just get a bloody proper job, you know, get something that's stable, that's going to, you know, that I go to Monday to Friday, that it's, you know, it'll be the job that I do for the next 20 years. And I used to think, why can't I just do that? And having the numbers say, like, no, that's not you, is me going, okay, I'm okay. Like, what I'm doing is in line with what I've got to do. I'll do hypnosis occasionally, you know, just, and everything just fits in with each other. So my day job, I have, you know, so many days a week, someone will contact me, I can act, and they actually ask for the day that I'm still free. So I just feel like things just, if you just relax and just accept that you are doing what you are doing because you're meant to, then I think that, you know, just the validation and just keeping fresh with everything that I do, because I'm also a musician and I haven't done that now since lockdown. We haven't done any of that.
Oh.
I'm okay with it because I've got all these other things still going on.
I love that because I really, really, really hear that. I also adore numerology. I remember I first discovered like the astounding world of numerology when I was about 18, and yeah, really was just fascinated and really, really wanted to know more and more and more. I actually wanted to be a numerologist, but I also am very easily distracted and kind of have a lot of things that I'm interested in all at once. I was also busking and playing guitar a lot as well, and that kind of took over. And then I wanted, I was sort of like more into performance as well. I have a lot of very similar things to you actually. And yeah, I also have never had one certain full-time job. And I too used to sit there and go, oh my God, like I need to do the right thing. I need to be a proper adult and, just commit to one thing. It's just like, well, I commit to healing. That is a huge, vast world that you can literally go anywhere in. So like, in one way it's like I've committed to one thing, but like what that looks like can be literally anything. And I've allowed that process within my Chinese medicine as well, because at first when I found out that I was sort of like wobbling away outside of my like limited clinical like vision of what a Chinese medicine practitioner can be, I got scared. I was just like, I don't know, like what to call myself or how am I going to pitch myself? Like, oh, what am I turning into? It's just like, who cares? Just evolve. Just do the thing. Just open yourself. Be fluid. Grow with it. It doesn't need a label. It doesn't need a thing. You don't need to pitch it. It's not even anyone's business. It happens when it happens. It happens on the table. Yeah. I still don't have a website because of this like so-called conundrum that I've been going through, because I've kind of felt the pressure that I had to do all these things, and the pressure of having to do all those things kind of collapsed in on itself, and I ended up not doing any of it. I became like completely paralyzed and just went, so my website died.
Yeah, because that can happen when you know all the stuff you've got to do. You're like, oh, where do I start? And you don't. It goes in the too hard basket.
Especially if it's not your strengths. And it's not actually, as we've been saying, it's not actually in true alignment with what you should be doing. It will not flow. It will not flow. So for ages, like the last 2 years, I've been trying to do this whole rebranding thing. And every single time I start, like even things like my car will completely shit itself and I can't go to, I was on my way to a graphic design, I can't make it there. Another time I was like halfway through it, my dog got cancer. All my money and all my time and everything I had like went into healing my dog. And it's like, this is really interesting. At first I was looking at it like, oh, everything's going wrong. And it's just like, or maybe you're putting your focus in the wrong direction and you're being steered into where you really need to go. Like, stop distracting yourself with these other things that clearly are not as important as I'm making them out to be. Letting go of that expectation about how I need to present myself to be taken seriously is definitely a process of evolution. Like,
to be taken seriously.
Yeah. Like people have said, like, when I graduated, they're like, oh, you're going to take out all your piercings and like, wear a lab coat. And I was just like, oh, I should probably do that. Yeah. So I tried that. I had an identity crisis and couldn't be myself at all. Like I didn't know who I was supposed to be without just being me. And then I remembered what my teacher said, there is patience for everybody. And I went, you know what? The people that will come and see me will be the people that are coming to see me because of what I have to offer them, not because of what I look like. So I'm letting all of that go. My lab coat got given to my eldest son. He used it for dress ups. And, it was just like, excellent. Well, that's a bit more freeing. I'm allowed to do me now.
But I feel like the way that you present yourself, that we all present ourselves, is very telling of who we are and how and what people can expect. So yeah, you just got to go with it. You're right.
You just got to trust.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trust. I have finally realized that, the trust is in my skill. The trust is in what I have to offer and what I have to bring the world, not really in so much of the appearances and the external part of it. As I said, I've been experimenting with a lot of human being over the human doing lately. So I've sort of, a lot of the expectations that I had upon myself about what I thought I needed to be, to present and how to present and how to be and blah, 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 what to do, and to, a lot of that was actually holding me back, because in order to do that, my perception of what I thought I needed to present like was actually cutting off so many avenues for what I was trying to expand into. So when I actually kind of, universe took away everything, this will be something that's edited out because I literally lost everything. Everything just fell apart. Like, I descended back into drug addiction. Not drug addiction, but just drug use again. I lost my mind completely. I was in the psych wards. I couldn't, like, I had to let go of everything. All this upholding of my expectations on what a perfect practitioner looks like, had to go. I had to go. And I had to, like, dump that ego part of it as well, which was really difficult. I was really invested in my ego, seriously invested. It's just like, but I've got all these expectations and rules that I need to uphold. It's like, we know, darling, that's why we're just like, let's just, no. Obviously it's not doable because you've gone mad now. You've gone...
Yeah, I know. We just get put back into place. We get sort of pushed, and no, over this way, and
like, you're not listening.
yeah, that's how it happens. Yeah. Well, I think, yeah. Well, you seem to be doing really well, so that's great. And we've been going for like probably over 2 hours now, so we probably should wind it up.
You're so fun to talk to. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for all your knowledge and everything that we've chatted about. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. It really has been such a pleasure hanging out with you, Jana. Thank you so much.
Cool.
And like, the irony is that I have been wanting to, I didn't know that you were a quantum healer technique practitioner. Because like Dolores Cadden, all that kind of stuff with her, I'm like, wow, fascinating. Like, I'd love to meet a practitioner and do that kind of work one day. And then, bing, you turn up.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm here in the mountains, so yeah. So yeah, I can.
You're local.
Yeah, so anytime you want, you can come and we'll do a session, because I get so much out of doing other people. There's so many messages, and towards the end, like, I'll get my team come in and like give me messages, and yeah, it's really, really cool. I learned so much from seeing other people.
Yeah, same. I actually agree with you. Like, so many times I've sat there and like, other people's crew are hanging around and they're talking to me, and I'm like, wow, this one particular lady, they were like, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, that just reminds me so much of me. And they said, this is not about you. And I was like, oh my God, sorry. I was just like, yeah, so as you were.
Yeah, wow.
What we're doing. Sorry, I heard people were really full on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, she needed it, so.
Yeah, definitely. So did I.
Yeah.
We do get healings from it as well, don't we? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we get guidance all the time. And the thing that I get is like, accept change all the time. And just because something was your truth, 5 years ago, doesn't mean you have to hold on to it. Embrace all the new stuff that's, being presented, and embrace change. So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for today. We'll finish up now because it's getting a bit long, but maybe we can do this again sometime.
I would love to hook up again sometime. Yeah, absolutely. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Nina.
Yeah.